This is Conquering Retirement with the team from Northern Alliance Financial. I'm here with Lance Gilman, CEO and financial advisor, Derek Hewitt, financial advisor as well. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. On today's program, we are going to tackle a very specific tool. I don't want to have people change the channels, but I also want to remind folks that you do a holistic approach to retirement planning that includes investment strategies, portfolios, income planning.
Sure.
But Derek, there's a very specific tool that you wanted to talk about today. What is that?
Yeah, it's the A word. It's
careful. Careful.
I'll say it real quick. Annuities. There, I got it out.
Okay, good.
Listen, this is certainly just one of many things that we do. And, obviously annuities in general sometimes get a bad rap. But folks need to understand, first of all, that, Social Security is an annuity. Their pension, if they do have one, that's an annuity. Mm-hmm. It's just one tool in the bucket. So you want to be careful because if you're dealing with somebody that's all they sell, then that's a problem. In fact, that's a really big problem because you need to make sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. And so what we like to do is incorporate this for a couple of different reasons. So I'd like to spend today talking a little bit about that.
So I want to talk about types, but here's one of the reasons why it's been front of mind for me. We'll talk a little bit about your guys' radio show, but obviously you do the television shows, but it's been widely broadcast across all kinds of stations across the country, news outlets. And according to LIMRA, which is a life insurance reporting agency, record-breaking sales, not just last year, but continue through this year into things like fixed indexed annuities. My first question is, we're going to describe exactly what kinds of annuities, the difference is, but what is the push, do you think? Is this people responding, Derek, to the volatility of the markets and what has happened? Or have these tools improved over the last couple of years?
It's both. These tools have certainly improved. They've been around for a little while, but it's more so the volatility. I mean, folks are scared, all right? They rightfully so. When you have what we happened last year, you're losing 25, 30%, they're looking for something else. And this is that something else that can be added. It's a tool that you can use. And I tell you, it adds a level of safety that you can't typically get within an actually managed portfolio. We look at bonds. The corporate bond index last year was down like 13%, is unheard of.
Yeah, but and you look at that and you say, well, a lot of times when you structure a portfolio, you're going to look at somebody's age and other things, and many times you get some kind of a ratio, and the ratio is that between the stock positions and the bond positions typically. But last year, stocks dropped 25 to 35%, depending on how somebody was allocated. And then people say, well, then we'll go to the bond market, right? Because there's safety there. The bond market dropped even worse, somewhere between 35 and 39% for 30-year Treasury notes. So there's no safety zone. So that's where you say, well, what's this other chassis? What's this other fixed chassis that we could place our funds in? And whether that's just a fixed guarantee or a fixed indexed guarantee, well, what's the guarantee? The guarantee is no loss. And that's very critical, especially as when somebody is getting ready to retire or has just retired. We want to have an element maybe of that portfolio as a conversation piece to say, okay, well, you want to retire this upcoming year. How much of this portfolio would you stand to be okay with losing? And guess what most people say?
I'm thinking zero.
There you go. Yeah. Zero. So if the answer is zero, then we have to look at some of these fixed asset chassis, because if you're going to put your money, even if it's in a tactically managed account, which we're going to try to mitigate as much of those losses as we possibly can, there's still an element of risk. So by having the discussion about the fixed annuities, it allows us to say, well, in these chassis, we know with absolute certainty there is zero loss.
But you're also still saying portfolio manager, tactical management.
Yeah, sure.
There's other money that's growing in another way, so we maybe have short-term, long-term, and we're trying to get to a fixed income, especially as you're saying with the floor, with no possibility of loss.
Right.
Now, you also, from my point of view, started to go a little bit into the weeds for me. You started talking about a fixed and a this and that. Derek, can you maybe explain the different kinds of annuities before we go into solving for some of this income?
Yeah, so the different kinds of annuities is you have a fixed annuity, sometimes called a MYGA, and that is a small fixed annuity, usually for 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5% fixed. That's what you're going to get. Then you also have SPIAs, or a single premium immediate annuity. That is an annuity that will turn on right away. Then you also have, fixed indexed annuities. Those are sort of a mix of the fixed annuity and sort of the variable. A fixed indexed annuity is basically an annuity that's got safety guaranteed in the portfolio. There's a floor, and that floor is usually 0%. What happens is you can tie the returns to a certain index, and if the index goes up over the course of a year, you'll get a percentage of those returns. And that's a good thing to have, but the reason why we do it, because if that index goes down, you lose nothing. And
Right.
any interest that's added is now realized, that's now part of your principal. But I want to mention one type of annuity that, I think Lance agrees, we're not very big fans of, and that's called a variable annuity. Usually carry high fees. They are variable, so there is an element of risk that you wouldn't find in other annuities. And those, I think, are what gives annuities in general a bad name.
I would agree. Because if you think about it like this, if your funds can gain and lose, that's the nature of a variable annuity, and you're paying exorbitant fees, what's the purpose of that? You might as well just be in the market.
I was literally just there. I was like, I could do that in the stock market by myself. I could gain or lose without having to have fees.
Right. And so that's why we don't entertain ever putting somebody into a variable annuity product. Although we do like to see variable annuities. In that, we like to be able to see that so we can get people out of them, right? Nice. Because and get them into a fixed position. Because again, we've got some of this money that we're going to manage tactically within the market, and we manage hundreds of millions of dollars in the market every single day for our clients. But sometimes people come in, Spike, and they just say, listen, I don't want to lose a dime of this piece of my portfolio because I'm counting on this for my retirement. I don't want to lose a penny. And so that's when we're going to say, okay, we're going to look to the fixed market. And whether that's just a standard guarantee, similar to what you'd find in a CD, but maybe a little bit higher rates of return, or we looked at, as what Derek was saying, a fixed indexed annuity where you're going to actually be able to participate in the market gains of the index, usually the S&P 500, but you have no potential of loss ever, zero. So you get a potential to participate in the gains with no loss. And those are going to typically, over the course of the tenure of that product, return better than the standard just guaranteed rates. Because why? Because they're tied to the market with no risk.
The definitions of these annuities are starting to make sense. When we come back, I'd like to ask you, who do you think that they make sense for, in what sort of situations?
Sure.
Folks, what we like to do is, if you have an annuity, if you are talking to someone about it, or if you're wondering how you can have an income stream in retirement where you can't lose on your principal, we would be happy to do what we call an annuity review along with the rest of your portfolio review. Two different ways you can do that. You can call the phone number down at the bottom of the screen. We'll schedule a no-cost appointment for you. Or open up your smartphone to the camera function, point it at that black and white box down on the bottom of the screen there, the QR code, and click on it. It'll take you over to our landing page, and we can schedule an appointment right there. More Conquering Retirement, and we would want to discuss annuities even more when we get back right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Conquering Retirement with the team from Northern Alliance Financial right here in the great state of Maine. We're here with Lance Gilman, CEO, Derek Hewitt, both financial advisors, and I'm just your host, Spike Spangle, asking these guys about solutions for our retirement. So annuities, please don't change the channel, folks. First of all, they're not necessarily for everyone. You don't necessarily implement them for everyone with your portfolio and your income. But how would you determine if an annuity does make sense for somebody who comes in?
I think the biggest thing that we would want to do is figure out, do some analytics on the portfolio and see how much risk somebody's taking currently. And we have a portfolio x-ray that we do for all of our listeners when they come in. They have their statements. We're going to talk about their goals. We're going to talk about their budget. We're going to talk about all of that, those things that as part of that holistic, comprehensive planning process that a fiduciary advisor would do. And then we're going to look at the portfolio and we're going to say, okay, how much of this money do you actually want to lose? And as we talked in the first section, most people say zero. Right. Well, the beauty about a fixed annuity is that you get a guarantee of an upside with no downside. Well, in order to do that, everybody would want that. Like, sure, put me into that, right? Of course. You have to give something up. You have to give up some element of time, just like a CD. Any fixed asset, you have to give up some element of time, you have to give up some element of liquidity. Well, we're not going to do that for the entire portfolio, for somebody's entire portfolio. So we're going to say, okay, how much of this money do we need fully liquid? We're going to manage that risk in this one tactically, in the fully liquid version. And then we're going to say, how much do you want over here where we know we're going to get a decent competitive fixed return with no risk? And a lot of times for most people, Spike, that equates to some form of a percentage. Well, some people say, okay, well, why don't we just put half of it over here? So if someone has $200,000, we're going to put half over here into this bucket that has no fees and is going to get a competitive rate of return, which means what? Well, we've got another half over here, this other $100,000, that is going to be managed but fully liquid for them. And that seems to work pretty well for most people.
Okay. What about, when do you turn on the actual income aspect of it? I've heard that some people even invest in these kinds of tools and they never even turn on the income of it. Or do you think people use annuities and life insurance kinds of products like that as tax deferrals for growth? How do you see them usually used?
Yeah, so first off, with an annuity, specifically the fixed indexed annuity, which is really what we like to gear towards. And with that, there's a couple different ways that it can be used. One could be an income, okay? As you mentioned, you can turn on the income stream. Oftentimes they have options to turn on the income stream now or later on. Obviously, the longer you wait, the higher the income stream. And the income stream can actually go
kind of
for
like Social
joint.
Security, which is kind of what we're comparing to. It's a little bit like a pension.
No,
like,
it's a
like
good
Social
point.
Security.
Here's the difference.
The longer you wait,
go,
the more that the income's going to produce.
But here's the difference with Social Security. If you start collecting Social Security tomorrow and you pass away, your money goes, it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone
With
away.
a fixed indexed annuity, you start collecting your income. Whatever money is left in the account goes to your beneficiaries.
Right.
So that's
a
where they
huge
Brilliant.
difference.
Well, that is great to hear. But I also used to hear the kickback on things like annuities. Number one, high fees, no liquidity, and that you would lose your principal once you passed away. This has changed in the industry?
Yeah, we have no products that we would use that would
absolutely
do
none.
that.
That would do that.
No, because that's not really doing what's in your best interest, right?
Not for
You're
the client.
gambling
Right.
that you're going to use that income now, and if you don't, and you pass away, then it goes away. That's a pretty big gamble. But there's another thing that can be used, an annuity can be used for, and that's just as a replacement to some of these bond holdings, add level of safety. So I call it a CD on steroids. It's just another bucket to take from.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. With no risk.
Yeah. And if the market's, the market's going down and your accounts are down a little bit, it's probably better that we hold off taking money out of those market accounts temporarily, let it recover. Having that other bucket with that fixed indexed annuity, that gives us an opportunity to take from. And so I call it a builder annuity.
Yeah, Lance, I want to ask you this because, folks, sometimes there's little conversations that happen in between the commercial breaks. And I want to go to what you were talking about. We don't have to hit numbers because we know the numbers in these annuities change over time. But are these some of the better offerings that you've seen in the last decade or two with the annuities? Are the numbers getting tied to interest rates?
Yeah, they do. Totally. And so as the interest rates rise, the fixed accounts for the fixed annuities are rising as well. And remember, most of these companies that we're dealing with are AA+ rated carriers. And so what's happening is they're buying at the institutional level, so they can get even better rates than even what most of the banking institutions can. So even those fixed rates become really pretty something serious to look at because it's a fixed rate guaranteed. If you can like push into the 4s and 5s, I've seen them as high as 6% guaranteed over the course of 3, 4, 5 years and with no risk, no fees, that's pretty substantial.
All right. Can I ask you, though, about a jingle bell I hear about, I'm not sure about. I hear about bonus annuities, the word bonus. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Where's this bonus coming from?
It can be a good thing. It just depends on where it depends on the annuity, you know. It's like everything else. There are good and bad products. But, you know, there are bonuses that are there, and the bonuses are actually a percentage that gets added to your account, you know, for moving the money over. Sometimes you'll have to vest in it, you know, for a course of years, but I wanted to jump back on the tax deferral.
Yes,
real quick.
yeah, I did want to know about the tax.
So you can have an annuity as an IRA, meaning that, you know, you can set up this annuity, you can roll over your 401k or a portion of that in there, no taxable situation, and, you know, that's all pre-tax compounding interest, the same as your IRA would. But
With no risk.
With no risk.
Correct.
But the other thing is you could take money from your checking account. Say you took $100,000, you put it into an annuity. You're not paying any taxes on the earnings until you take the money out. And the difference is if you take that same $100,000 and you put that in a CD, you know, the 5%, which isn't bad that you're getting, you're going to pay taxes on that at the end of the year. So it's really not 5%.
Okay, so there is a tax deferral while it's growing, only when you start to take it out. So there is the taxes, which is obviously a nice bonus to it. Not the word bonus, but and then are you going to use the income? One last thing, what about other riders? Do you look at things like the long-term care insurance rider? Do you like to use annuities for this, or do you prefer life insurance products for that?
Yeah, so this is another way that people can actually cover that risk of long-term care if they don't have anything else. And annuities, especially the fixed indexed annuities, many of them come with riders that can be attached to cover a long-term care need. And actually, just within the past few weeks, I had a lady that called in whose husband had been dealing with us for a number of years and had one of these fixed annuities with a long-term care rider provision attached to it. I don't know if I told you the story, but she called the office, set up an appointment. She came in and I met her and she said, my husband is experiencing some early stages of dementia. And he's starting to become more and more forgetful, and it's becoming more progressive, and it's been diagnosed. And I know he's come in here, he's had some stuff with you guys, I just don't know what it is. Come to find out, he had one of these, Spike. He had an annuity, a fixed index annuity with a long-term care rider provision. Dementia cognitive impairment is an immediate qualifier for long-term care benefits to start flowing to an individual. So what happened was, after some analysis, we were able to start an income flow for her, $4,000 to $5,000 per month, to help her to get some help. She had no idea. When she left the office that day, Derek, she was literally in tears.
It's a great benefit. And that's just, you know, we offer the annuity because of the protection and the income that it can provide. But that's just a bonus that's there.
Right.
And I mean, it's just an extra. And there's a lot more. There's death benefits. They can have annuities that give you a larger death benefit. And just many, many things.
Let's hit some of those after this very quick message. Thank you for the story on that, Lance. Folks, you're watching Conquering Retirement. If you're wondering about an annuity, more importantly, the solutions that you need for your own retirement, Do you have long-term care coverage? Will you outlive your savings? There's different kinds of tools. We're not saying the annuity is the answer, but it could be. And what we'd like to do is do a review with you. All you've got to do is call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. We'll set up an appointment for you. You come into the office. And even if everything you're doing is completely fine and you just want to see if you're on the right track, we'll also give you a complimentary copy of Lance's new book, Conquering Retirement. So call for your own appointment. There's no cost for it. What would you wait for? We'll be right back with more with the team, Lance and Derek, myself, right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Conquering Retirement with the team of Northern Alliance Financial right here in the state of Maine, offices all over the place. If you can see our broadcast here, we'd like to help you with long-term care, Social Security, investment planning, income planning solutions for your own retirement so you can be and stay retired. Lance just told us a wonderful story. Derek, how about yourself? When you're seeing people using the tools in the proper way, it's got to be incredibly relieving, but I'm sure you see some hard stories as well. It's not always just the rocking chair and the great boat in retirement. Sometimes you're helping with hard solutions, right?
Yeah. I last year had a client. They weren't a client then, but they came in. Husband had terminal cancer. Knew he wasn't long for this world, and it was going to, he wasn't going to be around much longer. Had a small amount of money that he wanted me to manage, which I happily did. But what I found out was that he was really looking for somebody to help when he wasn't here anymore because he actually had a large life insurance policy. So he wanted to find somebody that his wife trusted, which is, that means so much for him to trust me to take care of his wife when he's not here on their finances. And so what happened is, when he ended up passing away, I got a call. And part of the plan that we put together, again, part of the plan, because annuity is just one piece, but that piece for the annuity was able to replicate the income between that and Social Security that he was bringing in. She is not working. She doesn't have to work. And, again, she's dealing with some things right now, not having him around, but she doesn't have to worry about the finances and replicating the income.
One of those things we constantly have to remind people about is that when your spouse, if you're fortunate to have a spouse in retirement, when they pass away, you lose that one Social Security.
Yeah.
So what you did with the annuity, then you said replaced that Social Security. How about growth as well over time, though?
Well, so the issue here is that, so say somebody comes in and in that particular case, obviously it's tragic, but he knew in advance that he wasn't going to be around that much longer.
Yeah.
His biggest concern was to take care of his spouse. How's she going to be okay? So when he came to Derek, basically he said, well, this is what I've got. And Derek was able to show him with mathematics, listen, if we take this and we put it into this product, it's going to replace your Social Security. She will never, ever have to worry about anything for the rest of her life. And that's exactly what he was looking for. He wanted that assurance that no matter what happened to him, that his spouse was going to be taken care of. And that's exactly what Derek not only told him, but showed him. Yep. And then it just gave him a peace of mind to know that these guys are the real deal, and they're going to take care of my wife when I'm gone.
But part of what you said, though, some folks might be trepidatious in calling a phone number, coming in, meeting somebody they haven't seen before, even though I think you have well over 50 or 60 television shows. You've done hundreds of radio shows every single weekend. But somebody might be hesitant in picking up the phone. And what you did, though, was take care of something with what they had.
Right.
Some people might say, oh, I don't think I have enough to talk to a financial advisor, or I made this mistake, or I turned on my Social Security too early. Derek, are you in the judgment business of what people have and don't have?
Absolutely not. And we hear it all. So, I mean, I often get, there's no help for me before they come in. And, yeah.
Right.
Oftentimes,
Is it too late for anybody out there watching?
It's never too late. There is no judgment. And listen, I truly, truly want to put you in a better position. And even if we can't work with you or you can't work with us, I want to put you in the right direction and make sure I can help you any way I can. I think we all feel the same way.
Absolutely.
If I were to ask you, if I would pin you to the wall for a number, let's say you've got 10,000 clients, about how many of them you think actually have annuities, or have you suggested? Would you say less than half, more than half?
It's hard to say. I would say probably somewhere between a third to 40%.
Okay, so it's not
30
not
to
for
40%.
everybody.
Oh no, absolutely not. But it does fit in many circumstances, in many situations, especially when someone comes in and they say, listen, I don't want to lose X of this portfolio. I don't want to lose a penny of it. And if they've been through a couple of major market downturns, like a 2008, 2022, many times they're gun shy and they're just like, listen, no, I want 60% of this money safe. But I also want it to grow competitively. Okay, then we are going to look to that fixed annuity chassis. But if they want death benefits and other things, if they're looking for a long-term care solution, that's another situation where we would lean towards those fixed annuity assets. It's a good fit for many things, but it's not a fit for everything.
It's a tool.
It's
just a tool.
It's a tool.
Do you guys look forward to a future where annuities are offered inside 401k plans?
The right ones. I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what it would come down to, because right now most Americans were saving into those 401ks or 403bs and stock funds or bond funds or target date funds, but I don't see those inside there. I don't see being able to make a personal pension for myself yet, but an annuity can actually be the solution possibly for your own pension, correct?
Right, and a lot of times too, what people don't realize is that many of these annuities are built so that the spouse, so if I pass and I have annuity, my spouse, the spouse only can do this, can assume that annuity as their own and continue with it as if whenever it was first purchased. So let's say it was purchased 8, 9, 10 years ago. Well, now that annuity is completely out of surrender. The spouse could do what she wants with it, or she could just assume it as her own and have that long-term care benefit for herself.
Thank you, gentlemen, both so very much for talking about this today. As you can tell, we can continue to go on about this, but that's all the time we have today. Get your own annuity review. Make sure that you're using the proper tools for your retirement. Call the phone number below. Thank you so much for watching. The team will be back again next week.